Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Talk of the Town. I was on a brief hiatus and missed several of the Talk of the Town programs, but it was handled very well by Len Lucci in my place, and of course, with the backup of the mayor, Fred Robinson. They did an excellent job, and I think we only lost about 7% of our viewers, and I certainly hope that since I'm back, we'll pick them back up. And, they did a wonderful job. I watched both of the shows in Florida, and with the sunlight on the right screen, they really looked good. They did.
Is it time to go home now?
And happy birthday to you.
Thank you.
That's it, yes.
Thank
Happy
you.
birthday, bud.
Yes, it was an interesting time while I was away. I also had a birthday, and a strange birthday, because I went into the area where if you live to the age I am, you're guaranteed to live to 95. Whether you're a compass or anything, I'm not sure. But
Is that why Mickey told you to take up skydiving and all that?
She took up skydiving without a parachute. She just said, take it up.
No, she wanted you to do it.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Well, with that, we're going to chase the 7%. What about, I was thinking, and not every day in Florida, but I was thinking about Maryland, Governor O'Malley, the budget, and where we are. And as Fred mentioned earlier, we were chatting. He said, Len, that maybe you can bring us up to speed on what's happening, Budget Plus, these days, because Annapolis is, where are we? We're in the third trimester or something like that.
Well, I mean, as you know, the governor has to present a balanced budget. So if the legislature wanted to, we could adopt the governor's budget and go home. And the governor, unlike other governors, has kept up his commitment to education and to health care and to other infrastructure things. But the legislature always can make changes by cutting. They can't increase any line item. They can cut line items. And so what they're looking at is getting some additional revenues, possibly from the alcohol, by increasing the tax on alcohol for the first time in more than 50 years. Not as much as the advocates had asked for, but a good amount. And then also trying to restore some of the cuts that were made in education. Prince George's County was losing $20 million. They're going to try and restore $10 million of that. But otherwise, not make a lot of other big changes. I think they'll probably agree with the governor's pension changes, where either you get the same benefit and pay more, or get a lesser benefit and pay the same, because the pension plan has just been out of whack. But I think the only revenue increase you're going to see is the alcohol tax. Things like the gas tax are not going to go, or combined reporting is not going to work, or the millionaire's tax is not going to happen. But there is going to be a historic first-time increase in the alcohol tax in decades.
Oh, that's interesting. I'm surprised with the way gasoline and the prices are, because of the Middle East problems, that they didn't give more attention, pay more attention to a tax on the gasoline that I think would probably, in the short term, kind of square that away a bit. But that's
I think there was some interest in raising the gas tax this year, and whether it was complicated by the incredible rise in the cost of gasoline, and that may have knocked it off the table. I think the other problem that they had in that issue was a lot of the cities and towns and some of the counties were having a great deal of problems coming to grips with supporting a gasoline tax, when over the last 3 or 4 years, the legislature and the governor has cut the highway user funds. They cut the distribution of that fund. So it kind of puts everybody in very difficult positions. My outsider's guess is, Len's probably right. My guess is at the end of the day that thing will probably die off. But they got some serious challenges. Just quickly gloss over the thing with the pensions. I think there was $40–50 billion in unfunded liabilities related to just the government employee pensions and stuff. So, I give the governor a lot of credit for coming forward and says, this is what we have to do to get started on bringing this thing in. And then, unlike some of the other governors across the state, he showed up at the rally challenging him for making those things. And he, you know, whether he makes his case to the employees or not, I guess remains to be seen. But I think it's reasonable for him to, well, quite frankly, I don't think he has a responsible alternative, but to sit back and say, I've either got to raise the contribution or decrease the distribution, one of the two.
How much did you lose from the state money on the highway fund to Bowie?
We lost probably 95%. So,
Right.
yeah. The last 3 years, our general allocation is about $2.4 million a year. In the last 2 years, we got a little under 200,000. You know, so that's over a $2 million hit. So in the last 3 years, we've lost like $6 million. We're going to probably lose $2 million this year, and then probably $2 million next year, because I just don't see how they're going to pull themselves out of the hole.
And that takes its toll all over the state with
Sure.
road repair, road maintenance, and all the highway money's been sucked up by the inter-county connector.
Oh, that's too bad, because you know, I understand the times are not really wonderful in terms of our infrastructure, but you certainly need to be looking across the boards. I give you an experience. I came back on the auto train, and I'm hoping that this guy who said this, who was a conductor on the train, was kidding. We hit a bridge somewhere. It was in the evening. I don't sleep well on trains, so I'm awake. And he comes back and he says, our engineer is, well, we're stopped. Our engineer is walking the bridge, small bridge. I don't know over what water, but he's walking the bridge to check the supports before the train will go across.
Holy cow.
And I'm thinking, you're kidding, because I'm awake. It's
Did you
late
have
at
some
night.
like holy water or a rosary or something
Well, I
with
wish I had, because I would have doused it. So then he gets back on, we start up and we go, and I'm thinking, he must have been kidding. Later, I wasn't the only one that heard, and I was heard this thing, and the guy says to me at breakfast, he said, can you imagine they were checking the supports on the bridge before the train went over? I said, I hope the guy was kidding, because if he isn't. But what the point of that story, and I'm not sure whether it's true, fact, what, the trouble is that the infrastructure in the United States, especially as you go, now this should be going south into Florida, the road beds need work, certainly Amtrak, and the whole area seems to be, they're making money on that particular run from Lorton, Virginia to Stanford, Florida, and they're making money on the others. But across the board, Amtrak is losing money, and obviously some of the bridges that have been up forever and ever are now in disrepair, or, you know, need to be repaired. And if you go beyond that little story about me on the auto train, so when you cut the money that you talk about, and Len says it's the kind of money that streets, and it circles and circles and captures everybody, we're in big trouble, because you're projecting 2 or 3 years where we're going to lose another $6 million.
Len knows how this works on the statewide thing, and you're right. It's roads, it's highways, it's bridges, it's tunnels, it's all that. But just how it affects us, we've over the years had a practice where we like to resurface 10% of the city's streets every year, so that it doesn't go beyond a 10-year cycle before the streets go. I mean, you can stretch that out a little bit, but what happens if you don't keep the maintenance up, you get a short-term gain and a huge long-term loss, because the water gets under the roads, and you get the support for the roads damaged. Then you're talking really, really big bucks to do it. So what we've had to do is stretch that 10 years to 11, or sometimes maybe 12. You know, there's a point where it's no longer wise to do that.
When you think about the other thing I wanted to mention, and I've been thinking about it for a while, is we're short on money in the county as well as in the state, as well as nationally. There's a problem there. And I was thinking that with Rush Baker now, the new county executive, I keep looking for him while I was in Florida, I was reading our local paper, The Blade, and I was reading the paper down there. Certainly didn't mention Maryland, but coming back, I read through some of the old local papers. And Rush Aaron, I don't know whether he's slow starting or he's not putting things together. I was thinking, he's the county executive. Does he have the authority to shut down some of the money that goes to Ingrid Turner, our rep, the chairwoman of the council, to the council members? We've talked about this for years. They have $100,000 each council member in what I call walking around money that they can spread out anywhere. That's $700,000. And on top of that, they have they have the highest salary of any representative in the equivalent job in the state. I think if you
combine them all together, you make about what Len earns.
You bet. But if Len earns $1.2 million, we're happy.
I'm happy.
We got to get that, get him taxed right, but that's okay. But $1.2 million, he could collect just inside his own council. I'm not sure where the walking around money goes, but I've heard places that they distribute to maybe a church that they might like or this or that. And then when you think about it, they're making what, $145,000 a year as a council person?
Not quite that much, but it is.
It's over $100,000.
Yeah.
It is six figures. Okay. So we could save money there quickly. I hear nothing about that.
Well, it's a county council program.
Well, I mean, under the charter, the county executive can't touch the county council budget. They submit it, and it gets approved that way.
Yeah, it gets approved in total.
And
now, he did release his budget for fiscal year 2012, and although he was left with a $70 million deficit, he's still expanding the ranks of public safety officers. Mm-hmm. He's making a contribution to the schools of $14 million above the state requirement.
That's great.
He's created a $50 million fund for economic development, larger than what the state has.
I read that in the paper just the other day.
And he's keeping everything else flat, income, wages and no COLAs and no merit increases, keeping that the same for another year. But still, he's making the investments in the right place.
Yeah, I think the critical thing he's doing, and I think the one that takes a lot of backbone on his part, is to put that money into the Economic Development Fund, because
I think
it's the easiest one to demagogue against. It's the easiest one to complain about. But that's really basically the seed corn kind of. That's where the future's either going to come or it's not going to come. And I give the guy a lot of credit, for sticking to it and saying, we're going to do what we can about changing the image of Prince George's County, about being insensitive to economic development, being slow to, through the permit process and whatever, so that we can attract quality business and quality things. Some of us, everybody at this table has said over the years, it's disappointing when you look at that, like the 270 quarter, and you see what Montgomery County invests in, and the kind of business. They get these beautiful research and developments, and we get football stadium. So hopefully, this represents a new way of thinking, and a new approach. And like I say, give the county executive credit for having the courage to push forward that economic
$50
development.
million is the beginning of, you see, his vision for a future, which is so important that our elected officials understand that this is needed as you look down the road. I was also, and again in the county, I was watching just the news this evening,